Welcome, everybody. This is the morning meeting, Karen Reed Free Zone. We're going to talk a lot about Iran today and about what President Trump plans to do. Thank you for joining. If you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. This program, based on the Network News Division's morning meetings, we will discuss the events of the day, looking forward to what might occur. Sean and Dan will offer what we call expert analysis, and then your questions. If you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, you might be new to this platform. There's one rule. Say it with me now. No smack in the chat. Let peace, love, and understanding flow through every pore, every vein, every orifice you have to be nice to others. Listen, and if you disagree with someone, say Dan, say Sean, rather than write me a nasty email saying, I'll never again watch your show. Why are you giving a platform to ignoramuses? Instead of that, learn and listen. Listen and learn. Hear different points of view from your fellow Americans, and in fact, people from around the world. What a wonderful opportunity. What a unique platform. Thank you, dear Lord in heaven, for two-way. That's what you should be saying, rather than filling my inbox with stuff I don't really need to read. Gentlemen, good morning. Sean, how was your time on Capitol Hill?
I learned. I will defer full answer until we talk about one of the topics that's coming up. But I will say, lesson learned: be careful how much coffee you drink ahead of a Senate hearing.
Ooh.
Number two, any appropriation for new witness seats in the Senate, I am a huge advocate of. If you are on the shorter side, they are not made for you. So I learned a lot logistically. Yeah,
Good to hear.
but it was nice.
Dan, how much of Sean's testimony were you able to watch?
I watched 5-10 minutes.
Dan, it was 5 minutes. So
yeah. No, but I watched the lead in, and I watched afterwards. You rolled around. I wanted to see what was going on.
Well, appreciate
it. Here's what I recommend to all of you. Pro tip: go into ChatGPT and put in "How was Sean Spicer's testimony on Capitol Hill?" Try it. All right.
Do you know the answer for that?
Oh yeah, I did it all night. It kept changing, but it's all
so
good.
I posted this on Instagram, Mark, the other day. My kids continue to tell me that my hair is gray. So similarly, I asked ChatGPT to settle that debate. And apparently it is blonde, but it is corn silky, which I didn't know was a phrase.
Corn silky. As a Billy Crystal playing Fernando Lamas would say, it's better to look good, my friend, than to feel good.
Yes.
And you looked exceptionally good. All right. Very limited schedule today. The president, it's been reported, will be in the sit room at 11, although his official schedule says he's got a closed press intel briefing at 11:30. 2:30 participates in the swearing-in ceremony for the ambassador to Ireland. And
oh, you know what? I'm a little bummed here after my fail yesterday. Because on the official schedule, it just says it participates in ceremony. So I researched Edward Sharp Walsh. I was ready to go today. And then the fabulous team at the morning meeting puts it on the screen. I was ready to go with a full bio back. I mean, I wanted to make up for yesterday.
There he is. The briefing today, I predict, will be a colossal waste of time because they're basically going to ask Caroline Leavitt to say when the war is starting. And I don't think she'll reveal that at the briefing, but we'll all be tuning in at 1 for that. Don't know what the vice president's doing, although I suspect he'll be hanging around with the president. House and Senate are out. So let's cut right to the chase. Dan, is the president now leaning towards a negotiated deal? It's being reported that Witkoff is still in touch with the Iranians. So are we more towards negotiated deal, or are we more towards war? Let's have percentages.
90% likely more towards war.
90-10. Sean?
75-25.
War.
Yeah.
I have become less bellicose in my outlook here. I am 60-40 war. But
but remember, I was probably 90-10 yesterday, so I'm with you. I'm going in the other direction.
Understood.
But I'm not getting into that 60 is where you're getting touchy go.
Okay, let's look at some stuff from the last day to just set up the conversation, because we really don't, none of us do know, and the president's not tipped his hand. He said quite a few times yesterday, 2 photo ops, he could decide anything, and it's all up in the air. I continue to believe he can wait, and this may now not be a Wednesday, Thursday event, but might be a Friday, Saturday event if it happens. So here are some recent tweets from the Ayatollah, 107. The guy's Trump-like in his desire to convey his position on social media. The very fact that the Zionist regime's Americans' friends have entered the scene and are saying such things is a sign of that regime's weakness and inability. Let's rate the Ayatollah's tweets, Dan. Scale of 0 to 10, 0 being absolutely false, 10 being true. How do you rate this one?
A little Baghdad Bobish.
So like a 1?
Yes.
Sean? 0 is
I
absolutely
don't-
false, 10 is absolutely
I don't
true.
think that it's
Well,
a
it's not-
sign of the regime's weakness and inability. No, that's false. I mean,
Okay, so like a 0. All right, let's
Yeah.
do the next Ayatollah.
he's
tweet,
only
108.
missing if he would just do sad with an exclamation point. I would be like, I think the Ayatollah could get some points there.
Exactly. I would like to tell our dear nation that if the enemy senses that you fear them, they won't let go of you. Continue the very behavior that you have had up to this day. Continue this behavior with strength. Dan,
I'm not even sure what he's really saying, but okay.
what's your
Yeah,
rating?
And what is it again? 0?
0 is absolutely false, 10 is absolutely true. Just
2.
do the first sentence.
2.
2. Sean.
Yeah, I'm there. I also think that he really needs someone to help with these. He needs a Dan Scavino.
He does need it.
Because this is not, I'm with Dan. Like, I was kind of like, what is he trying to say here?
All right, one more for the Ayatollah, 109. Now he's doing these in English, and
Yeah.
victory comes only from Allah, the Almighty, the All-Wise. That's from the Quran. And Almighty God will certainly definitely grant victory to the Iranian nation, to the truth, and to the side that is in the right, God willing. Hard to rate that one because...
No, I can rate that one 0.
0. Dan?
Well, or you could say that God wants the regime to fall and not have weapons. So
a little confusing.
Yeah,
right.
sure. It's a 10.
Here is, and just to sum up what's been going on Israel overnight, including the hitting of that hospital where, thank goodness, no one was killed. There's a serious matter. We're going to play 105, but I'll just say the narration of this, if it's not my Uncle Mordecai, it might as well be 105.
Early this morning, during rush hour traffic, Israel was hit by a heavy rocket barrage from Iran, resulting in several casualty events in multiple locations. There were at least 7 impact sites, with Soroka Hospital in Beersheba suffering a direct hit. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries there. The IDF identified between 20 and 30 missiles launched toward Israeli territory, and most, but not all, were intercepted. So far, at least 23 people were reported injured, 3 of those seriously injured. Now, in addition to Beersheba, the other impact sites were in the Tel Aviv metropolitan area. Many of the injured were in Holon, a city just south of Tel Aviv. The casualties there were evacuated to the nearby Beilinson, Wilson, and Ichlav hospital. Also suffering a direct hit was Beersheba's Soroka Hospital. Fortunately, the wing that was hit, the surgical ward, was evacuated completely last night. As of now, there is only a report of 1 minor injury in Soroka.
All right. That was not my Uncle Mordecai, but for some reason I find that narration to be humorous. All right. Here is from this morning, Prime Minister Netanyahu visiting the hospital, and listen to every syllable because embedded in here is a clear distillation of the current Israeli message.
President Trump will do what's best for America. I trust his judgment. He's a tremendous friend, a tremendous world leader, a tremendous friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to do, and we are doing it. We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel. We're able to do it. And we, of course, will make our own determination. But I have to say that the partnership with the United States, the partnership with President Trump, with whom I speak to almost every day, is incredible. I think his resolve, his determination, and his clarity when he says Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And for that to take place, Iran cannot enrich uranium. It's as simple as that. He gave them the chance to do it through negotiations. They strung him along.
All right. Finally, with a more jaundiced view of Bibi Netanyahu, here's Bill Clinton last night, 106 from The Daily Show.
Mr. Netanyahu has long wanted to fight Iran because that way he can stay in office forever and ever. I mean, he's been there most of the last 20 years. But I think we should be trying to diffuse it. And I hope President Trump will do that. I hope anybody there will do that. We've got to stop. We got to convince our friends in the Middle East that we'll stand with them and try to protect them. But choosing undeclared wars in which the primary victims are civilians who are not politically involved one way or the other, or just want to live decent lives, is not a very good solution. Do I think that we have to try to stop Iran from having a nuclear weapon? I do. I tried at that, and we had some success. But we don't have to have all this outright, constant killing of civilians who can't defend themselves, and they just want a chance to live.
Well said.
Dan, where do you think the president's decision-making stands, the current president?
I think, as we've talked about, he is, I think there's two big things. And I wrote this actually on Substack yesterday, that one, can the bunker busters truly take out Fedorov? Because if not, then what? Because now, once we're in and we're saying that they can't have a nuclear weapon, and by all accounts, that is the main facility, if you don't completely knock it out, are you going to assist in, let's say, the Israeli commandos going in with helicopters or whatever, air cover? And what happens? And then the second part is, I think he is weighing, can we really say we'll provide the bunker busters and that is it? And as far as what new regime comes and all the other things, Israel, you're on your own.
Sean, what are the factors the president's currently considering, do you believe?
So the president's North Star is peace. Like, he does not, like, I cannot fully, I don't think people appreciate in private discussions anything that ends up with destruction. He's talking about battle damage assessments, civilian casualties. This is where his head, and in the past, he called off a strike to Iran. I watched him go through this deliberation in Syria in the first term. That's what's going to be the first thing he's really getting to. What is the destruction? What is the potential casualties? How many civilians will be involved, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I think he wants to end up. And that's why I think that it's always going to be, the default is to not go there. So he's got to be convinced and that this is the only solution. I think we played that clip of the hospital last night. The smartest thing that I don't know if it was intentional or just sheer luck that nobody died in that hospital, but it benefited Iran, because had they actually killed innocent civilians in a hospital, I don't think we'd be having this conversation right now. The president is doing everything he can to posture getting the right planes put on. This is another tactic. Remember, part of this is you pull certain assets out, you make it clear to everyone, see what I got? We've done this before in Guam, where we pull certain assets out onto the tarmac, make it very clear, we're fueled, we're ready to go, don't screw with us. And so in this case, you've started to see at least reports of key assets being ready to go. This is a warning to them to make sure that they understand that the rope is running out and the time is running out. I believe that he is trying to find a way to not go there, and that if Witkoff can come up with something, or they'll at least agree to meet. And the funny thing about the narrative right now is that he's saying they're trying to call me, they want to come to DC, and they're the ones denying it. I think that they're playing on borrowed time right now. I think if his default is to not ultimately bomb them, but if they don't give him a choice, he's going to have to do it.
And I think that was what Netanyahu was signaling. I think their patience is going to start running out. Like, we got our foot on their throat. We've got to do this now.
Yeah.
Here's what I don't understand about the peace track. And I agree with everything you just said, Sean. Previously, with the Obama negotiation and with the Trump negotiations that did not bear fruit, the Israelis have been very against an agreement because they don't believe it serves the interest of Israel. Is Witkoff going to check with the Israelis, or is there going to be a U.S.-Iran deal not blessed by Bibi? Because I can't imagine Bibi blessing any deal.
No, but I don't think Trump. I mean, look, that's the line. If Witkoff comes back to Trump and says, "I believe we've got a deal. I believe they can uphold it. They're at least on the path," Trump will take the deal. He does not want to get further into a quagmire. Full stop.
Is there anybody?
Stop. And he does not want death.
Tom Cotton, or
No.
there's no
Nope.
one. If Trump likes the deal and Bibi doesn't, he'll do the deal.
I think maybe the only one that could have a little bit more of an outside is like a Jared Kushner, who could call him and say this, you know, but no, there's no aid around him, because it's not an aid. It's not a persuasion. His default is not going to war, not putting US in, like, that is where Trump's headed. So you have to drag him the other way. That's the thing that people have to understand, is that this is not a pro and con.
But wasn't the reporting from 2 days ago that said he'd signed off on a plan?
But remember,
the
distinctions matter in this. The plan is, and I've watched him do this before. If we go, are you good with this plan? Yes. Okay, so here's what we'll do if we decide. If you give us the green light, then we will do X, Y, and Z. We'll drop this bomb at this place at this time using this ordinance on this platform. That's different than go, right?
Yeah.
So the plan is signed off on pending the go. That's the key right now. He is not giving that sign.
Dan, I find the Israeli hymn book to be hilariously consistent. You watch their spokespeople on American media. They say what Bibi just said. They always start with, this is Thomas Jefferson and FDR and Reagan rolled into one. We're in lockstep with the United States. Thank goodness for President Trump. He's standing up to the Iranians. I don't get, as I said, how do the Israelis react if it's announced that, you know, Witkoff is going to Geneva to meet with the Iranian foreign minister? What does Bibi start to say? Publicly and privately.
Well, what does he say and what does he do? Because right now they're bombing day in and day out. So would they stop? Would they say, because remember the original deal that like the US tried to get Iran to do was that the nuclear materials would be shipped out of the country to, I think it was like Saudi Arabia or a third party that would then kind of process it and send it back in for peaceful purposes. And the Israelis were totally against this. They
of course.
Right. So even if Trump says, fine, I have a deal, can he, Sean, get Netanyahu to stop his military campaign and say, because by the way, both are on record, they cannot have a nuclear bomb. We're leaving intact the nuclear facility.
I think there's 0% chance that Bibi would endorse a deal. And I
don't
100%.
Understand.
Well, how can Trump do a deal now under the current context if Bibi's against it?
Because he doesn't. I mean, look.
What does he say? What does he say publicly when he's asked? Well, Bibi says this allows Iran to quickly develop a missile and nuclear capability. What does Trump say? I all of a sudden I disagree with Bibi.
Yes. He's going to say, I've met with them. They give him a thing. We're going to give him a try. If they cross my line again, I don't think that to me has never been an issue. Like he will literally just say, I disagree. We believe we've got a deal. We talked to them. They think that I'm going to give them a chance to see. And if they don't, that'll be the out. There'll always be a caveat. Yeah. If they don't, then we will resume this.
All right, let's stipulate that none of us are members of the Council on Foreign Relations or experts on Iran. But as close watchers, I'm a little confused. You read the Ayatollah's tweets, as we did a little while ago, very bellicose, very belligerent, very no yielding. And yet the president says they're begging to come to the White House to talk to him. They are meeting with the Europeans tomorrow. I love the Europeans, always desperate to help solve a crisis. Yeah, we'll do it tomorrow rather than how about today or yesterday.
By the way, the idea of European help is we'll tell the Americans what to do.
Exactly. Dan, what's your sense? Are the Iranians looking for a deal because they're afraid of regime change or having their country bombed back into the Stone Age, or what?
I honestly don't know. I would think they would want a deal to stop the bombing, to preserve their power and preserve the nuclear program, because as several people in the chat are saying, what Sean just laid out, or what Trump would be laying out under such a scenario, is the Barack Obama exactly what he did. I mean, that is exactly what
minus the pallets of cash.
They still are doing business with China. They're still having piles of cash. Like, that's it. I mean, that's the farce of the whole thing. But the reality is there's a reason 5 presidents haven't gone to war there, because they all are staring into the same abyss right now, or prior, and now that Trump is now. I don't know, Mark. I just don't see
Sean,
how that
can be
squared.
I think there's two existential things we talked about yesterday that are still maybe not the number one issue, but are tertiary issues that are getting brought up in the sit room. The economic impact of what will have happen to oil. Therefore, in the middle, and again, it might be crass to discuss, but we are in the middle of the beginning of the summer travel season. So suddenly saying, Mr. President, before we go, I just want to let you know every American's going to pay, $1 more a gallon of gas and get pissed at you. Second is, what is China going to do eventually? Because at some point, Chairman Xi is going to get off the sidelines and start being a little bit more boisterous. And I think that those two issues are coming up and not getting discussed the way that they should be in terms of how this is playing out, because this is all like, if you bomb, I mean, Dan has really, I think rightly so, brought this up. Like, once you hit the bomb, that's the easy part, to be honest with you. We all get it. Like, there is some question about whether it will be effective because it hasn't been used at this level before. Two, do the Israelis potentially have some other options? But beyond that, the next 10 steps are the real big ones. Those are the ones that matter. The easy one is drop this bomb. Then it becomes what happens next, who reacts to it, what happens with the cost and price of oil, what does the rebuilding look like, what does regime change look like? Those, to me, are the follow-on questions, are what's holding up a decision.
Okay, it's almost 5 p.m. in Iran right now. So that's the time difference. What time operationally, Sean, would this attack occur if it happened? Would it occur at night in Iran and therefore daytime in the United States?
It's a good question. I think if you think about the refueling effort and everything else, I mean, I would assume that you would drop at night, probably on a Friday or a Saturday. So if we're going, I would imagine
at night in Iran.
Right, in Iran, and go over the weekend. I mean, the beginning. So you'd probably go tomorrow about just at, so if it's 9:21 now, I would probably launch at noonish tomorrow from the US.
Noon Eastern time.
Yeah.
And how long would the whole mission take?
I mean, well, it takes, I got to look at the flying time. I mean, it sounds like a very Tucker Carlson question.
Yeah, well, here's why I'm asking. Like, in the world in which we live now, like, you go on Twitter now, you can see all sorts of videos of American hardware moving around the world, right? Refueling and ships docking and all this stuff. So it seems like if the B-52s take off either from Missouri or from overseas, it's possible somebody's going to know. The president's not going to announce the mission unless Pete Hegseth jumps the gun. The president's not going to announce the mission until the B-52s have left Iranian airspace.
Correct.
So I'm trying to figure out.
My guess is that you're looking at about a 20 probably 20 something hour flight time with refueling. So you'd have to green light this thing pretty soon. Now, remember, once they're in air, you can still call it off. I mean, like,
you can. He did that. And he did that previously.
But
let's say my point is, let's say the president decides today in the sit room, yeah, let's do this, and they say we're going to do this at midnight in Iran to minimize casualties, right? So if you're saying it's a 20-hour one-way flight for the mission,
I'm not. Yeah, I think it's probably a little longer than that if you went straight with refueling.
Right. So my point is, like, if he wants to do it Friday, he gotta put him in the air pretty soon.
Right.
And then again, the question is, every day that goes by, it seems to me it becomes harder to launch anything in complete secrecy.
Well, remember though, the other piece is this: once you launch, you either have to you either abort the mission or you drop the ordinance, right? Yeah. Those are the only two options. Yeah. And if you drop, we all get that. But if you don't drop, that's a bigger problem because now you've blinked and you can't blink again.
Unless he gets something out of it. And we've got this talking negotiation. So just the timing is a little weird, right? If the president wants to launch it, he's going to have to, and he's got to wait till they're out of there before it's announced. But it could leak out at any time. And then what do we say? We're all sitting around waiting for them, tracking them. Some kid with some software is tracking them for 20 hours from Missouri to Iran. I just haven't heard anybody discuss this. It just seems a little weird.
What I don't know is there's a difference between some of the bigger planes because of the tail numbers or whatever. I don't know that that the stealth is going to be picked up.
I was just going to say, and
those guys can take off in a way. They intentionally, there's a difference between wanting to show, like I said, back in the day, we used to put bombers out on the tarmac in Guam just to be like a big FU, to be like, hey, guess what? We're ready. There's a big difference between showing your cards to do a little saber rattling. It's like moving a carrier. It's projection. But in those, I think that you could probably sneak a B-52 out or B-2 out without anyone knowing.
Well, they probably also are doing training runs and everything. So I don't think it's like all of a sudden the car rolls out of the garage and everyone's like, "Whoa, we haven't seen that car in a while." Like,
yeah,
I imagine
I don't know.
I've
not seen a report of a B-52 out right now. Maybe there has been. But the other thing is, the president should go to Camp.
Stealth planes.
I know the president should go to Camp David. Like, he should stop talking because if the planes are in the air, presumably he will stop talking. So he should stop talking now. So
I don't know.
I don't agree with that. I think part of it is the second that they go, that's when you want to be like, tick, 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 buddy. Guess what? Now that you're on the clock.
President come out and say the B-52s are in the air. Now's the time to surrender.
No. But I'm saying that, like, the idea of going silent to me would be a tell.
Right, would be a tell. Yeah, I agree.
Well, no, because it will be a tell. But what I'm saying is, the sooner the better, because if he does go silent, it will be a tell. But he should go silent before. He should say, still no decision, but then be silent.
But here's the point. If he goes silent, again, you're basically on the clock. Everyone's like, okay, that's a tell. Yeah. My point was, the more you're talking, if the only ones you want to know that you're potentially going are the Iranians saying, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
The countdown clock just started. But
all right, let's hit two other topics real quick, and then we'll take your questions, please. If you're here on the two-way platform, would like to be part of the conversation, raise your hand. Reconciliation. There's ads on the air in favor of the bill. There's all sorts of new arguments being launched. Susie Wiles reportedly told the Senate yesterday, get this done by July 4th. We still don't know what the X date is. Dan, where are you? Just kind of like 30,000 feet, bullish, bearish?
Still very bullish. I still think it's sort of what I forget what you call it, mortal lock, that they will get it. I don't know if it will get done by July 4th, but I still believe that they will get it done.
Sean?
So if it isn't a doe is a small deer, right?
Yeah.
So then what's a small deer? What's a small bull? Because I think that I'm not bullish, I'm small bull. Like, it's gonna get done, but the logistics don't make sense right now. They've got a Medicare problem. They've got a SALT problem. They've got some spending issues. And I mean, none of the problems, they've got a Senate problem, not just then once you cross that hurdle, you've got a bigger House problem. Right. So they keep saying July 4th. Remember, July 4th isn't July 4th. It's June 27th because they're going on recess. Right.
And I don't think the holiday is enough of a forcing mechanism.
But
but I don't think they want to waste the X date on the Senate. They're hoping to get the Senate done without the X date.
This is, to me, I am actually really, I mentioned this yesterday, the day before, I'm really taken back by the idea that Thune allowed this to happen, because there's no, you solved nothing in the Senate, and you created a wider gulf in the House.
I agree.
So there's no logistical scenario time-wise, even if the Senate, and they won't, gets it done next week. You think Mike Johnson it's not going to happen? And Thune is saying already, we'll work that out with the House. I know everyone doesn't like the C word, but there's something they admit it. They're publicly saying, we'll work it out with the House.
Yeah.
Well, everything is always kick the can down the road. Let's just get to the next thing. And at some point, you get to that end of the road. You got to do it.
All right. What's the name of the guy who used to be on this show? Tim
Hogan.
Tim Hogan is one of the DNC comms folks. And I'm feeling a little bad for those people, because look at these headlines about the Democratic Party. 110, Politico, weak, whiny, and invisible regarding the DNC chair, Ken Martin. Here's the New York Times, 112. Sorry, having trouble reading this. The DNC is in chaos and desperate for cash. And here's the Washington Post, 113. Democrats want to fight Trump, but they can't stop fighting each other. Mr. Martin, by all accounts, is a very nice guy. I got nothing against him personally. I said from the beginning, they need a stud chair. They need someone who is a colossus. They need someone in the mold of Haley Barbour or Ron Brown. And instead, what they got is Joe Andrew. You know who Joe Andrew is? Joe Andrew was the DNC chair.
Yeah.
And once President Bush was asked a question about, well, Joe Andrews says da. And you know what President Bush said?
Who's Joe Andrews?
Who's Joe Andrews? Dan, are these stories just a bunch, as the chairman and his people say, just a bunch of Washington, D.C. inside gossip? Or is there anything in those three pieces that if you were a Democrat, you'd actually be worried about?
There's a lot in those pieces that I would be worried about. I mean, and we don't have enough time, but I'll just say, two big ones. One is money. Like we've always talked about this. The job of the chairman is to raise money and then use it to build infrastructure and kind of have a pot of cash for campaigns to use to support them in the midterms and for the president. It is being reported that the Republican National Committee has $68 million on hand and the DNC has 18 million. We have had 2-to-1, 3-to-1 cash on hand advantages the last 6 or 7 years. And now we are staring at a 3-to-1 disadvantage. And that's a huge problem. The stories are saying the committee's thinking of borrowing money. And that has not happened in over 25 years, since before Terry McAuliffe. The second is, and Mark, you've talked about this here and on other platforms, voter registration numbers continue to be terrible for the Democratic Party. And they continue to be very strong for the Republican Party. So money and infrastructure, the two big things that you're supposed to be doing. And then just the other thing is, it is not good when you have people like Donna Brazile and others saying, who is, for those who don't know, she is a very prominent Black figure in the Democratic Party, going back to when she ran Al Gore's campaign in 2000. She was like, he's not my cup of tea, basically. And like, I don't want to be his friend. I mean, that was taken aback.
Yeah. And Sean, before you jump in, I'll just say, picking up, Dan, on what you said, like, you have to be a titan to raise money when you're out of power, and you got to give people confidence. And I can't tell you the number of donors who said to me, like, I don't even want to meet with the guy. Like, what's the point? I don't want to write him a check. What's my money going for?
Look, there's been like 3 times in my entire life when I've said, read the New York Times. This is one of them. That story was brutal. Yeah. Dan's right. I mean, like, it's the number of people on the record crapping on the DNC is mind blowing. He hasn't even called the Soroses. Dude, that's like, at some point, like, you need to call the guys with the money. They literally, it was embarrassing, that story. A couple little small points. All money isn't created equal. Dan mentioned the disparity between the RNC and the DNC. There's 4 pots of money that a committee raises. The general pot, which is the sort of blood. It can be used for anything you want. Then we've resurrected the building fund, the legal fund, and the convention fund. So when you get people to give out, when you look at someone's total amount raised, it's deceiving sometimes, because you might max out, you might raise $5 million in a building fund, but you're somewhat restricted in what you can use that for. So they have a bigger problem, because their O-type blood of the money that they can use for anything, which is like pay staff, turn the computers on, all that kind of thing, is a problem right now. He has created this 57 quote state/territory a la Howard Dean strategy, where he's committing $1 million a month, which, okay, I actually don't think that's a bad thing, but you can't do it when you don't have any money. Yeah. This is a problem. Over and over again. They don't have a strategy. That's a bigger problem. And everybody's saying it. He's not doing the basics. It's to me, that storytelling. And the last thing I'll say, and this is reminiscent of what happened yesterday, why I deferred. Yesterday's hearing blew my mind. I mentioned in the meeting yesterday that I had war gamed this, I had murder boarded it. Like, if Durbin says this, then say this. I had gone through, my team had put together a list of like every senator and what they had said. They walked out. Their staff walked out of the hearing. There wasn't a Democrat in the hearing after the initial round of opening statements. First, Durbin gave us showed a video, which was very cute. And then Peter Welch from Vermont gave some random word salad speech and then walked out of the hearing as well. They're ceding the ground. The idea that they didn't get up there and just go off on Donald Trump for an hour, and we had myself and another former aide of Donald Trump's, they should have sat there. I don't mean to give free advice, but the hearing's over, guys. They should have sat there and just gone at us. You want to talk about decision-making, Mr. Spicer? I've got 4 decisions I want to ask you about. When this decision was made, did the president vet this? When this decision was made, did you agree with this decision? What was the president's, they could have gone to town. this isn't just the DNC. Their entire party lacks a fundamental strategy about how to communicate what they're for and what they're against. They've got big, big, monumental problems.
Yeah. And I will say this two things, and then we'll go to your questions. This is not us as quote unquote insiders crapping on the DNC or the Democrats. This is objectively a massive problem. As horrible as those stories are, they're understated based on my reporting. Things are worse than those stories suggest, and in some areas. And the pushback from the Martin camp is he's doing great. This is a bunch of carping from insiders and disgruntled people. Everything's going great. I hope for their sake and for those who care to have two strong parties in America that they're just spinning and they recognize the problem, because he is overmatched right now. These overmatched.
Are not the drones you're looking for. Dan, quick question. Logistically, let's just say that there is a come to Jesus within the party, that he's not the right guy. And absent him personally stepping down, is there, I mean, it's hard to get rid of somebody who is duly, well, actually, after what you guys did to Biden, who knows? But, but I would say that, like, did the DNC rules allow for this? Because I think there's a difference between asking him to step down and him voluntarily doing that versus the entire DNC saying he's got to go.
So I don't know the bylaws for removing a chair. I'm sure there is something.
Not going to happen.
Right, but that's my point, is that you're stuck with the guy. He's going to have
to resign, and I think it would require, just like you joke about Joe Biden, it would require like Jeffries and Schumer and the leadership going to him and saying, "You've become such a headache, and you're not performing. You need to leave, and we're going to come out."
If there were an obvious candidate to replace him, that person might have run against him. There's no obvious person. I'll tell you what they might do, which will be a disaster, is layer him. Bring in what they've had in the past, like with Joe Andrew, have a general chairman, have some former elected or current elected. Never works. Never works.
Well, someone watching who's intimately familiar with this stuff just texted me that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was run out. So there is a
but there's a difference. So the two parties
pushed her.
But just remember that and I can speak to this from the RNC standpoint. There's a difference between a party in power. So when you have the White House, the president runs the RNC. So whether that was Bush or Trump, that's who run. I mean, you are now subordinate. Exactly. You're basically the deputy political director.
But when the members do it,
when the members vote, that's a very different scenario.
Totally agree. And the members are mostly loyal to him because they just elected him, and he's one of their own.
And by the way, here's the other thing. Just keep in mind, the people within the party who aren't with him, the Randy Weingartens, are resigning. Right? David Hogg's gone, Randy Weingart gone. Donna doesn't want to meet with the guy.
Consolidates his power.
I mean, yes.
Well, I think the one thing, though, is you say that, he ran and won, but if some of these candidates that might have done it, but they didn't want to have to run, if the party leadership came and said, "Hey, would you, like, there's going to be a race. You're going to."
I don't know who would it be?
Who is that?
I don't know who it would be. All right, Carly, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind, and thank you for being a part of Two Way.
Hi, good morning. Love the platform. I want to say to Dan, tell your parents, congratulations to raise the most wonderful man. You're great. I'm a Republican, but you're just wonderful. So thank you. Love your books. Mark loves your books. Sean, thanks for everything you do.
Thank you.
I live in New Jersey, work in the city. I'm very concerned. What happens if we go to war with Iran? Are we going to have a terrorist attack in the city? I go into the city almost every day. I'm just worried. What do you guys think?
It's a great question, and obviously,
and I'm sorry. Yeah. I would like to, if you can, to ask a question from Anthony, a view from Europe. I think he's in the military, and he had his hands raised.
Okay.
And I would like to hear from him. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that endorsement. I will say, obviously, New York is a special focus for a variety of reasons, but the whole country is potentially vulnerable, and particularly if there are sleeper cells. Dan, thoughts on the safety of the homeland if there is an attack?
Yeah, it's real. I'll tell you, Carly, even in my own house, my wife and kids all said the same thing. They asked, like, do you think there'll be, a potential attack here? So it's obviously on the minds of New Yorkers and Americans everywhere. I'd be worried if I worked in an embassy overseas.
I share that. I mean, look, I think there's the non-state actor aspect of this of sleeper cells is real, and it's scary, and it's important, and I'm glad we're talking about it. But to answer your question, Carly, yeah, I mean, it's got, whether it is definitely a real concern because it's not even just Iran directed. It's a non-state actor that says on behalf of Iran or on behalf of like we will do X. And so you know, I think it's a real concern. I will say that I think our intelligence and our counterterrorism capabilities have gotten tremendously better. So I feel very confident that we'll do what we can. But yeah, I'd be worried.
Yeah, we're safer than we were on September 10th, 2001. We have a Department of Homeland Security. New York City spends hundreds of millions of dollars on Homeland Security. And even under this incompetent mayor, it's a pretty big focus. So nothing is going to be airtight, but you should just be cautious. And if you do come to the city, you should just, watch around you, avoid, places that might be big targets. And I probably wouldn't take the subway these days at this point if there is an attack just to see. But it's just a reality. But I'll say it's a reality now. We're such an open society, and sure, Iran could decide to do this, but others could decide to do it too without provocation. Carly, thank you. Grateful to you. And just to be clear, my parents say the same thing about Dan. Anthony, the baton was passed to you, so I have no choice but to bring you in next. Delighted to have you back. Tell folks who don't know where you are in Europe and what's on your mind for Dan and Sean.
Hi guys. Yeah, so I'm from France, and I think Carly actually just read my mind on that because I also have the same problem. And just two quick points that just wanted to make. So the first one is on just I would say the political capital in terms of supporting Israel's action. I think so like the big countries, like for example, Britain, I know for a fact that a lot of people there are very concerned or remember what happened, I think about a year ago in April of last year, with the group of 7 people who were killed. And so a lot of people have a serious beef with the state of Israel for one of their citizens being killed. Remember with the what's the name of that organization? The Kitchen, I can't remember the exact name. And on the security side, it is really a problem here because I remember, for example, in 2016, when there was the attack in the Bataclan. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we did.
As well as, I can't remember which year it was precisely, but where there were more than 110 people that were killed during the July the 14th celebration.
Yes, sir.
So those two things, so on the political support and just the question on the security, a lot of people are looking at it and are like, well, we should not get involved because we always end up picking up the pieces on the migration side, which brings with it the security questions. So just the 2 points that I wanted to make on that.
Okay. Sean.
Look, I think that the points that you're bringing up are really important. Like there's a lot of concern, as I said, about what happens afterwards, right? And that's where I think the president is right now. Dropping the bomb, like, and I say this obviously respectfully, is the easy part. That's a decision of like, okay, here we have the capability, we have the assets. It's not a tough thing to, no one's sitting around saying, how would we do this, right? That's the easy. But I think everything that you're bringing up, Anthony, what happens next? What are the consequences? What are the security implications? What are the rebuilding look like? Everything that you're bringing up is exactly, frankly, what I think the real discussion is going to become. Because to Mark's point a minute ago, I think they start with presenting the plan to the president. This is how we'd carry out the mission. He says, okay, great. I'm good with that. Then it's like, okay, what next? And that's where the heart of the discussion is. Part of everything that you're bringing up is exactly what everyone else is talking about. And I think so. It's a good point. Part of the problem is there's no easy answer. And that's why I think we haven't had a solid conclusion.
Dan.
Yeah. Oh, Anthony's trying to talk, but I think he's muted.
Anthony, you're muted, buddy.
Yeah, sorry.
Well,
yeah, because remember, especially for example with Libya at the time, remember there was this big story that it was even covered by CNN, where they ended up having slave markets in the region because it's been well, the country is destabilized. So yeah, so maybe Gaddafi was not a good guy, maybe Saddam Hussein was not a good guy, maybe Syria it was also a problem. But then once you intervene, every single course of action over the last 20 or 25 years in the Middle East has always been a disaster on the security side. So a lot of people are like, is it really worth the risk?
Yeah, Anthony, I'd say not everyone has been a disaster. Some have, but not everyone has. Dan, comment.
Yeah, I think, look, Anthony, the challenge is for everything Sean just said and you said, it's why this hasn't really been fully dealt with for the last 50 or 40 years. And now the Israelis believe we've gotten to the point where it has to be dealt with now, or they cross the line. Our intelligence seemed to be a year or two, but still, you're kind of getting towards the end of the road. And so, given how weak Iran is, the theory is like, if we're all saying they can't have a bomb, this may be the moment to make that a reality.
There's two other issues that I think are important in the back of Americans' minds. One is people look back on Iraq in particular with WMD and say, well, we went down this before. I think there is a distinction here, for what it's worth, which is in Iraq, we were relying on a very different set of intelligence sources for whether they had weapons of mass destruction. Saddam was saying we have them, but we couldn't certify it. We were taking his word more than our own intel, whether it's human intelligence, signal intelligence. Like we were relying on his public comments. The evidence we have from Iran is, I think, a lot more solid. But that then goes to the Anthony question. Okay, then what does follow on? So the intel, I think, is probably better. The follow-on plan is, to me, still the big X factor about what do you do? What happens if you're successful? If you take this out, if you have regime change, what does it look like?
Jay, welcome in. Tell folks where you are, what's on your mind.
I'm in Parkland, Florida. I'm one of those Democrats converted Republicans in 2020 during COVID. I moved from California to Florida. I'm supported Trump for his immigration policies, his in the trade, Doge, his economic policies, all of them. I think he can do everything and fail at everything except this one, this anti-war promise, ending the wars and starting new wars promise that he made. And I think if he steps into it and he ends up starting this war, he's going to lose a good chunk of those people that came from the Democrats into the Republicans. This is a big rallying cry for the Democrats. It's going to give a lot of energy to the Democrats, and they will. And these elections are won in the margins. So midterms, forget about it. President Vance, forget about it. Hello, President AOC.
Yeah.
AOC. So forget. So again, I'm a big supporter of Israel. I love Israel. I love what they're doing. They can keep doing it. I don't want the U.S. to be involved.
Hey, can I just ask you though? So what? Just if President Trump called you right now and said, "Jay, I hear you," then what should I do? What's the answer?
Just Israel is doing an amazing job. Let them finish it. This is not Iraq. Iraq was 30 million people. Iran is almost 100 million. It's 3 times the population.
So you're fine. Hold on. I just want to make sure I understand this.
Yes.
You're fine with Israel continuing to attempt to do what they do, even if they, if that there's an outside possibility that they could do, there are some tactics they could use to go after some of these nuclear sites. But barring that, we know that there's probably a decent case to be made that they can't. You're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they started this operation. They knew what they were doing. This has been planned for 10 some years. The minute the U.S. gets involved, then we're a target. You can't expect Iran not to retaliate. They have to retaliate.
You don't think that they think that we're involved now?
They do, but not directly. It's a big difference.
So when they chant death to America, they would mean death to America after we go after Israel.
It means not, the chanting means nothing. It's the actions that matter. A lot of places around the world. I believe that the same way we didn't like when the Ukrainian president said, "Oh, Russia's going to come to you." I believe the same thing, that when Israel says, "Oh, Iran's going to hit you," same way. If Ukraine wants to fight Russia, let them fight it. If Israel wants to fight Iran, let them fight it. I'm a cheerleader for them. I want them to win.
Jay, do another thing Donald Trump has said is Iran cannot get a nuclear bomb, as Trump has made very clear recently. He's been consistent on this. If our inaction results in Iran getting a nuclear weapon in the next 2 to 3 years, are you okay with that?
I don't believe that's the case, and I think there are a lot of different. When Trump said Iran cannot have the bomb, it was married with the same message as I'm going to end all the wars and I'm not going to start any. So when we heard him say Iran cannot have the weapon, we listened to him and we believed him. And then you can do everything else except starting a war or getting involved in an action. So I believe in finding a way, some other way to stop Iran from doing except dropping the bomb or getting involved.
Jay, thank you. Grateful to you for coming on. Very great. And as they say here,
I think you speak for a lot of people.
You speak for tens of millions. Katie, welcome in. Welcome back. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind. Katie's a member of the Two-Way Hall of Fame, for those of you who don't know.
Hey, y'all. I'm from Louisiana, North Louisiana. Sean, I had to tell you that right after the morning meeting yesterday, my baby brother was he texted our group chat, and he was walking in the hearing right behind you. So he was about 15 feet. Yeah. So
well,
I
might
actually meant to,
for what it's worth, Katie, shameless plug on Instagram. I took a video of the audience as I was walking in. So see if your brother's on there.
Okay, I'll do that. I screenshotted some of the clips on the two-way last night and sent them to him. And he said that I had the wrong kid, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know what you look like. But anyway, he was
oh, that's great. I wish he had said hi.
Yeah. I know. I told him to. I was like, just holler. But I think it was like catty corner behind
He could have
your shoulder.
He could have gone full Alex Padilla. I would have still said hi.
Yeah, yeah. But I had a question about that too. Well, he's interning for Scalise this summer. So he was I think it's the end of his first week. He's loving it.
Awesome.
Loving DC life. But my question for like all three of y'all was what goes on now from the hearing? Because I just got to watch the clips, but I saw on like the clips about the auto pen and like how do you verify that? I mean, like since y'all said that all the Democrats basically left the hearing, who testifies, and then what happens now? Like, does anything like I guess like how do you know that was the case, like that the auto pen was used? And
yeah.
Right. Great question. Sean, what's the follow-up for that hearing?
Committees perform two basic functions, and I'm being Schoolhouse Rock about this. They hold hearings and they hold what they call business meetings, which colloquially are called markups, which is when you have legislation that they want to move forward. So on a hearing is just that. It's like a meeting. So we get people to testify. Normally the minority has their witnesses and they're trying to gather information. So a hearing in theory ends when it ends, and that's it, right? You can have a follow-on hearing. The members can take that information and do something with it. So during the hearing, they asked each of the witnesses for advice and thoughts about what should happen next. The House will have a hearing. James Comer is going to have the members of the Biden administration under subpoena appear to talk about stuff. I felt like there were three sort of takeaways from yesterday's hearing. One, the gentleman sitting next to me, who had been one of the part of the Domestic Policy Council, was very clear. And again, it wasn't my lane to bring up, but when the president makes a decision, there's a decision memo that goes forward on basically everything that will be presented to him by the staff secretary that says, here is the discussion. And at the top, it has boxes: concur with comments, reject with comments, meaning like, I don't like it, but just clean up. Like, so, and that is recorded so that there is here's your team. Here's what they advise you to do. What is your decision? And the president can either accept it, reject it, accept with comments, reject with comments. And the point that was made yesterday is there should be a paper trail on all these decisions that President Biden made. That should, I think, in a variety of reasons, Josh Hawley wants those records to come forward, others that were at the committee, Senator Schmidt and others. So do they pursue that? That's up to them. And I think the House will have a further discussion on that and hopefully use some of that information. I brought up the fact that Dr. O'Connor publicly said that President Biden was fit for office. He should be questioned as far as how he came to that conclusion. But there's part of it, the goal of the hearing, I'll just leave it at this, is to share information and ideas and thoughts with the committee members. How they digest that and how they move forward with it is up to them.
Dan.
Yeah, you try to provide a theme for the public. You try to kickstart public conversation to shed light on something. I think that the interesting thing in that House hearing, because I don't assume that Neera Tanden and these kind of bigger people are going to get up there and say, you're right, we were covering, like, that's it. I think the question is, are lower level staffers talking to the committee, and will they have instances in which they read to them, one of your staffers who worked for you said, Joe Biden, we canceled a meeting because Joe Biden, for unexplained reasons, and the decision was either made or it was delayed for days and days and days. And, how did you guys handle that? And that's where this will get more interesting, is if lower level staff talk.
Well,
Okay.
one last point, Katie. The auto pen, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I listen to them, but my take and basically on everything that I heard is using an auto pen is not a problem. It's a function.
Common.
The issue is intent. So if you take my auto pen or my signature and affix it to any document that I'm unaware of, whether it's a legal document or a legislative document, that's illegal and not binding. Whether if I direct you to go into my DocuSign because I can't, I'm physically unable to press the button. The intent is there. And I think to Dan's point, if they can show an instance where a staffer used the auto pen or a digital signature to take a presidential action in which the president wasn't aware of, that is a bigger problem. And then the question becomes, is it valid or invalid no matter what the action is? Senator Cruz laid out some really interesting statistics that almost all of his executive orders the first year of his term were personally hand signed. None of them the last year of his term were hand signed. So the question is, what changed? Why was he no longer actually involved in the signing of things? I think there's a lot more that the committee is going to delve into.
Katie, thank you. Great to see. Go ahead real quick.
So then are there any repercussions? Like if there was ill will, like what?
Maybe.
So like if they find that out,
actively?
We'll have to see what they find. We'll have to see what they find. The courts might have to get involved too. Katie, thank you. Sean, what do you have tonight?
Big panel. Rob Bluey from the Daily Signal, Jessica Anderson from the Sentinel Action Fund that's doing a lot of that voter reg stuff on the right. We'll get to her about how that affects their taking on the left. And then Alex Sawyer has a brand new book out. She'll join the panel as well on lawlessness. So we're gonna have some fun tonight. And we'll talk about the Taylor Swift tax. Yeah. The Rhode Island state legislature, the geniuses there, just passed what they're calling the Taylor Swift tax because she has a second home in Rhode Island. But it's affecting a lot of other people.
Okay. 3 two-ways coming today. One, a brand new show I'm going to tell you about. But first, Dan's going to tell you about his program, 4 o'clock today. Dan, sell the group chat like a used car salesman.
Yeah, we will be live at 4 p.m. We will also be discussing Iran. And I'll be really curious because, as we always say, that our group chat really spans the ideological spectrum. And I will be very curious to hear what Nina and Batya and Emma Jo and Robbie have to say on this. You're going to hear from the most dyed-in-the-wool MAGA to a libertarian to, a very progressive person. So no doubt it'll be a lively chat. I will also have then had caffeine and food because I haven't been able to have either today because I have my annual physical right after this. So I'll be even more perky and ready to go.
Wait till Dan reports his standing heart rate tomorrow.
Actually, Dan, you should give your full medical. Are you fit for office? Are you fit for the group chat and fit for the morning meeting? Please have your doctor weigh in.
6 p.m. tonight on Two-Way Tonight. Mercedes Schlapp and I will be joined by the great trio from the International Intrigue, John Fowler, Jeremy Dicker, Helen Zhang. Please join us for a conversation. Obviously, we'll talk a lot about the events in Iran and Israel, and we'll have a full coverage of the White House briefing, which will be momentous. Then finally, I want to tell you about a new program that's on tonight. It's called Authentic Connections, Real Talk for Men. Jeff Singer, Richard Gable. This is a show about how men can talk about problems that they have that too many men just don't talk about, whether it goes all the way to thoughts about self-harm or just simply struggles with daily life. These two guys are extraordinary talkers and understand it's a free-flowing conversation about issues that men experience but too rarely discuss. So join us at 7:05 shortly after we conclude two-way tonight for the first episode of Authentic Connections, not just for men, but for women who care about men. Please join us for that conversation. You can go to two-way.tv to sign up to be part of the conversation on the two-way platform via Zoom, or you can watch live or on demand on YouTube. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this community and this conversation. And the three of us will be back in 23 hours. As I said yesterday, the world could look very different by the time we reconvene. Have a great day. Again, we'll see you tonight. And don't forget the debut of Authentic Connections at 7:05 Eastern. Thank you.
Yes.